Hi people, how are you all doing? Welcome and welcome back to the channel. It is Sandra here. So today's video is on Douglas Murray and the UN, okay? So this is going to be quite interesting because yeah, this is going to be quite interesting. So let us just hop right into the video, okay?
All eyes were on the UN as Argentinian President Javier Milei and others spoke. Javier Milei blasted the United Nations, saying it had moved from an organisation that pursued peace to an organisation that imposes an ideological agenda on its members. Douglas, he also criticised the UN Pact for the Future plan and said the organisation had become one of the main proponents of systematic violations of freedom. He was referring to COVID-era policies there, but also the fact that they allow these dictatorships, these despot nations to sit on the Human Rights Council and then condemn a country like Israel.
This has been the case for decades with the UN. The problem with the UN is that whatever setup you had to replace it, if you ever could replace it, would probably end up looking something like it. My view is that it's perfectly okay to have a talking shop like the UN. It's probably a good idea to have something where the world's leaders can meet. But nobody should be under any illusions about this entity. And many people, it seems, are. We have at the UN dictatorship after dictatorship holding the floor to lambast the world's democracies, including the only free liberal democracy in the Middle East, Israel. And they just do it day in, day out, year in, year out. That's been happening for decades. And in part, that's because, the dictators like to do that because it takes attention from what they do back home. It takes away attention from their own larceny and theft and corruption and much more. They always use the punching bag of Israel. Occasionally, they also use the punching bag of America. Look, the organization has always been the same. It's always been obscene. It's always allowed obscenity to go on at an international scale. But you've just got to look at it and realize that, the world's democracies should not be having to take much notice, if any, of, various despots and dictators saying they don't like something that's happening in free liberal democracies. Well, they wouldn't, would they? The question is whether you take it that seriously or not. And I would argue people just shouldn't.
Now, El Salvador's wildly popular President Nayib Bukele also addressed the United Nations. He had some pointed remarks about regimes that prosecute and seek to imprison their political opponents. And he responded to his crackdown on violent gangs in El Salvador, which has been heavily criticised in the Western media. He said, in El Salvador, the safety of law-abiding citizens is a higher priority than the comfort of criminals. And he said, some say we have imprisoned thousands, but the reality is that we have freed millions. There's a new generation of leaders, Douglas, whether it's Milei in Argentina, Bukele in El Salvador, Giorgia Meloni in Italy, and they're showing a new type of leadership and resisting the UN and this entire notion of collectivism.
Well, there's certainly something that's breaking the mold. All the people you listed are doing it in different ways. But I mean, what I think you've seen in recent years has been a backlash against a certain sort of bureaucratic World Economic Forum Davos-like class, which simply overplayed its hand. There's always this thing in politics of, the adults in the room. And the problem is if the adults are shown to be wearing no clothes, eventually somebody comes along and points it out. We've had quite a lot of those people now. The adults really kept on exposing themselves in every way as not as competent as they thought they were. The international financial crises in the last decades, the immigration crises that are roiling all of the developed countries, all of these things, rampant criminality in major American cities, lawlessness, and much more. All of these things go on for a certain time, overseen by the alleged adults. And then at some point, other people will come along. I think we've been rather lucky, actually, that nobody really unsavory has come along. It's quite surprising. Although, if you read some of the coverage of Millet and others, you'd think, that they were the worst thing that could possibly come. No, this is the beginning of some kind of backlash against that bureaucratic class that said they knew how to run everything and turned out to be able to run an awful lot of things into the ground.
And we're seeing it in many parts of Europe as well. It really is quite a fascinating period. Before you go, I've got to ask you about the case against Sean P. Diddy Combs. So far, he's been charged with 3 counts of sex trafficking, racketeering, transportation to engage in prostitution. He has been denied bail, but we are starting to get some defence lines from his legal team. I don't know how good they are. His lawyer claims that the 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lube Homeland Security found when they raided his mansions were due to an error from Costco. And he also said that Diddy likes to buy in bulk. Dear me. How nervous, on a serious note, Douglas, is Hollywood, the music industry, the A-list in general about this case and what it could reveal?
I have to say, I'm one of those people who's pretty unfamiliar with the work of Mr. Diddy. I don't know much
Mr. Diddy.
About his work, but I can tell you that when these sorts of stories come up, there is an awful lot of worry in that class. It's obvious that there are certain things that go on, certain sort of secrets that are held effectively among certain A-listers. What always happens about this when it comes up is that people end up coming out saying everybody knew and all that sort of thing. I think that always shows something rather pathetic. My preference always is let's see how the law progresses. This has to be litigated in the law courts, and we'll see. There's a lot of rumor around, a lot of casting of aspersions, but we've seen in cases before where that can go wrong. We'll hope that the American justice system it proves to be the place where we can find out what actually has happened. But yes, in the meantime, some of the things you had just listed there suggest that perhaps Mr. Diddy ought to get other defense lawyers on his case, because those ones don't sound that great.
Yes, for starters. And again, to me, it highlights when we hear these celebrities, whether it's at the Oscars or the music awards, opining about social and political issues and lecturing the country. These people seem to exist in a different reality, and their moral compass seems to be rather different to most ordinary folk. I mean, we saw that with that whole Harvey Weinstein. Sorry, go on.
We certainly shouldn't listen. Amazingly, something I've said for many years, we shouldn't listen to celebrities about the state of the planet, the state of politics, or anything else. They're not qualified to do it. They are probably qualified to do small numbers of things that they can do. They should do that. The rest of us should absolutely ignore their proclamations. They count for zilch. Less than the UN, you might say.
Less than the UN. Douglas Murray, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Great to see you as always.
Okay, I don't know if you guys know, but I've been getting into Douglas Murray for a while, and I'm just like always in awe and just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that this man knows everything about everything, right? But today I see something that he is not so familiar with, and that is the Mr. Diddy. I'm sorry that we just spoke about like a whole lot of things, and I kind of like had to talk on the last part of the video because it was quite interesting to me, but yeah, I mean, the whole Diddy case, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not even as familiar as most people, but yeah, but that's by the way. Now, speaking on the UN, people, I am in support. Like, you see the way there are people who are written for a lot of things to be abolished, right? And I cannot understand why they want it to be abolished. But you see, when it comes to the United Nations, I'm gonna be like, yes, because the body and what they are meant to present and what they're meant to be for every country. They really are not. So it really questions, you know, what they like, the whole essence of them, because there have been things that have happened and things that they should step up for, and they don't do anything. So the body actually, I'm questioning the essence. And if you're a body for something, and people who you're meant to, or people who you're meant to protect or to govern, or just to, I don't know, curtail, or questioning your essence, is either you step up or you step down. And that's it. Because yeah. Anyways, we did get into this. I already shared my opinion on the UN and Mr. Diddy case. I would also love for us to just put our heads together and talk more on the topic down in the comment box. I'm really gonna appreciate it. If you are yet to subscribe to my channel, please do give this video a big thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and hopefully next time we'll all get to convey here. Okay, so keep on staying safe and healthy. Bye.